Let's go. Right. Well, I'm not quite going to go that far, Councillor Barker, but let's get back into this if we can. I think. I can't whistle properly. That's my problem. Okay, so we'll go back to just if I call the meeting back to order. Mr. 80's got to go to a submission at Hastings District Council by 4:20. Is that correct? Yeah, so he really needs to get away. So he's got a couple of things he wants to do. But I think we could quickly whip through, with due care, I should say. If we go back quickly to page 63, June Graham and June Graham, Grey Power, Napier and Districts. She made verbal submissions. Is someone happy to ask some questions there, or is that just someone happy to move no change to the plan? You have?
They all get a letter.
Yeah.
It's very nice. Says thank you. You sign it.
I write them individually, Alan. And June will get 2. So there you go. Yeah, sure. Okay. Have to second that, Councillor Hewitt.
Yeah, I'd like to speak. I have a 94-year-old nana. I suspect she's probably about 20 years older than June, but we play Chinese checkers and I get a little bit, kind to her, and then she ends up beating me. So I just would like to suggest that we don't underestimate Mrs. Graham, and perhaps she might consider standing for council.
Thank you, this is Councillor Hewitt. So I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Then we've got submission 75 down the page. Seek law change to levy water being exported. Councillor Barker, no change. Councillor Scott seconded. Put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Pauline Doyle and Ken Keys, Guardians of the Aquifer. Any commentary around that, Chief Executive?
Well, look, this was a staff response was written prior to this issue being placed before the Regional Planning Committee last week. So there is, I think, the response to the submitters could or should reflect the decision of or recommendation of the RPC, which will become a decision of Council on the 29th of June.
Thank you.
And further to that, it's not mentioned here, staff in effect are requested to plan for a deep well drilling program in this current.
Just keep it back. You keep turning it off halfway through, Councillor D.
Albeit that the drilling, as it stands at the moment, may not start until 2018 year, but there's always the possibility of bringing it forward next year.
Thank you. No change of the plan, Councillor Scott. We have a seconder for that. Thank you, Councillor Pipe. Put that motion. Oh, do you wish to speak?
Yeah, I do, Mr. Chairman. That we really do need to rely on our expert staff and their recommendations in making our decisions, and we do need a properly planned program, not an ad hoc drilling program, and this has been followed through the RPC.
Yes, I'll speak. Yeah,
Councillor Bevan.
yeah, we're dealing with the submissions of a couple of people here, Pauline and June Graham, who are very regular attenders at our council meetings and take a close interest in what we do, and I really appreciate the fact that they submit to us and are pretty interested in the activities that we carry on around this table, and I'm really pleased that some of the issues that they've been raising with us are actually in the throes of being dealt with, so it's a good thing.
Councillor
Echo that comment. I'm sure we have not gone far enough, fast enough on either of these issues to satisfy everyone, but both of these are areas that I feel pretty strongly about and have deployed some of my capital to try to move along, and I think they will. And particularly I'm referring to the oil and gas, the notion of developing some principles that would guide us policy-wise in that area, and Pauline in particular will be a part of that process as this energy group gets reorganized and off the ground later this month. So I think we will be responding appropriately in both of these areas.
Thank you. Put the motion then. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Toi Mata
Thank you, Mr.
Foundation.
Chairman. So that's previously the Enviro Schools Foundation. They've just submitted in support. They haven't asked for any additional funding.
No change to the plan, and seconded by Councillor Pipe. Put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. And Redstone Wow Incorporated Cape Coast Shingle Replenishment.
Yeah, just a quick one. It was a generally constructive, positive and supportive submission was my take on it. Keith Newman's verbal presentation probably wasn't quite aligned to what I'd anticipated, but I think generally they're very supportive of the coastal strategy and the joint committee and the work they're doing.
Questions? Councillor Bevan, you happy to move no change? I'm happy to second that, no change, and you wish to speak?
Yes, just very briefly, Chair. I actually went and had a chat with the group that came in from WOW after their submission yesterday. They are aware of the process. They're aware of the formation of the reference groups for each of the cells that we're going to now develop a strategy for. And I'm sure that in one form or another they will be involved in those reference groups. So they'll have every opportunity to have input into the process from this point on. And that's a really positive thing because they felt disenfranchised and out in the cold for an awfully long time. So they'll have their moment in the sun.
Yeah, given that the presentation by Mr. Newman was a slightly different one, and the response doesn't necessarily respond to that here, I'm presuming then the response that staff put out and the letter that goes back to them will be couched in a way that responds to both the verbal presentation as well as the written presentation. Is that correct? And the other thing, just as a matter of process earlier on, letters that are going out to all the submitters, do we get to see them? Will they be on a file somewhere so that we can actually see them?
Normally they're in a folder in the council chamber.
Thank you.
Yeah. Further discussion. Put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Now let's go then to page 69. And Mr.
Browning.
80. Glyphosate.
Glyphosate, yeah. I think the response is reasonably self-explanatory. Yes, we are looking at ways over time to reduce our usage of chemicals, but they are an essential tool in our armament at the moment.
Questions? Councillor Bevan?
Yeah, we had a conversation about this afterwards, and it was a real shame that the MP who presented on this didn't leave any time for questions, and I would have thought he'd have been a bit better organised or informed on the process than he was. I'm actually quite concerned about all the rumours that are running around about the use of glyphosate, which is incredibly widely used, and I actually sat here during the course of the submission that guy gave, and I could count 5 people around this table who I suspect are very frequent users of, or have been, of that product over decades. And if there is a problem with the product, I'd actually like to know a little bit more about it, because you're told by a lot of people, we've always been told that this is an incredibly safe product to use, and now we're told, well, maybe it's actually carcinogenic, and I'm wondering whether we can actually get some slightly more informed and balanced views or statements from our own internal research as to whether there's any grounds for us to be concerned. Because, I mean, this guy's saying you shouldn't use it on playgrounds, you shouldn't use it on river edges and so on and so forth, but the alternatives, I suspect, are costly and not very effective, and I'd like to know a little bit more about whether there is an assessable risk here or not with the use of it, because this organisation must use a hell of a lot of it.
Just briefly, I agree with Peter's question, but I don't think we have the technical resources for doing it.
No,
I would have thought it's a
very,
role for a central government agency, and I thought require it to MFE or some of the. Sorry. The EPA, yes, as you're right, but someone should be sent, so we've had this. Mr Browning is going to be going to all regional councils and councils on the same issue. So let's not all start digging ourselves. Let's go, as you've suggested, make some inquiries, say, should we be concerned? And if not, why not?
So you're happy to move no change to the plan, but a second point, no, I'll let you speak, but the second point is request that staff do further research on this issue, yeah? So you're happy to move that when we get there, but Councillor Graham wishes...
Just have one question, slightly frivolous. I recall when Roundup come out, the chief executive drunk a glassful. I was just wondering if he's still alive, if we could find him.
That was a previous chief executive, and he must have been.
Mr Chairman, I can recall a senior councillor here, Adrian Williams, who said that you could do yourself far more damage by drinking half a bottle of whiskey than half a bottle of glyphosate.
No one's tried that. So it's been moved with the proviso that a request to staff to do some more work. We have someone happy to second that. Thank you, Councillor Barker. Wish to speak further. Another story on, and I shouldn't be saying this, but a previous manager of Tautani Station, which is now belongs to the iwi, his wife went away from 6 weeks, and he said Roundup just at the right mix was just right to keep the lawn at the correct height for 6 weeks until she came back. So there you go. I'll put the motion. Then all those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Thank you. Mr. Gilbertson.
Are there any questions?
Questions on the cats?
I had some sympathy, of course. I mean, I didn't realise that we've been talking about it for a decade, as he claimed. But I also would like to see a policy on cats. So I have some sympathy, feral cats, or cats in general. So I just want to say I have some strong sympathy with him there.
Yeah, sure.
Is it correct that we actually delayed we had a working party on reviewing the pest strategy, and that work got delayed because we're still waiting for further regulations? Is that correct?
That is correct, but not specifically with regard to cats.
No, it was the
so
whole of the
the
policy.
Biosecurity Act was revised and included within the whatever it is, amended Biosecurity Act, was a requirement that NPI provide some national policy direction.
Are we still waiting?
No, that has been gazetted last year sometime.
Okay, so when are we reviewing the pest management strategy?
We are planning on having a sufficient stage by the end of next calendar year so that any funding implications can be considered through the long-term plan.
Recommendations then. Someone happy to move? Councillor Scott's happy to move. There's no change to the plan. We have a seconder for that. Thank you, Councillor Bevan. Discussion.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the work that has been done by Cape City is giving us a lot of research on how to deal with this, and there's no intention of just leaving that area to be reinfected. The work is looking at how it can be cost effectively rolled out over a wider area, and no doubt that cats, along probably with goats, may be considered in the next pest management strategy, and that strategy actually has to be consulted on. So there is a process to go through with all of that. The idea that we can do anything about registration of cats is actually we cannot pass bylaws except in the area under the Marine Act with the coastal marine safety, whatever it is, so navigation and safety. So the fact that we can put pressure on councils through triennial, I've actually never found that type of pushing for a bylaw is actually part of a triennial consideration. The triennial consideration is how we work together, but there is nothing to stop us submitting to any of these councils on such things at any time.
I think probably everyone around this table has some sympathy for the feelings of Tim Gilbertson in relation to feral cats. I was up at a property I own up north at Mangawai last week, and I actually met with the pest control guy from the Northern Regional Council because we need to embark upon a pest control and eradication program so we can get kiwi in a forest that's immediately the back of our property. And that I'm pleased to say that includes trapping cats as well as other pests. So some people are already doing this.
Great. Okay, other speakers? Put the motion, then all those in favour please say aye. Contrary no. Carried. What are we now? Page 71. Mr Neil Curtin. Range of issues covered there. Mr Adey, you wish to cover any of that?
I think his suggestion on specific targets is covered really by the operational plans of land management, so I won't go into that. Probably the one that I do think is worth just highlighting is his proposal for the lower typo, and I mean, a nice project, nice to have, but how do we line it up against all of our other priorities? And I really do believe that our future enhancement on the Hiratonga Plains should be guided by priorities that come out of TANK, and would anticipate that that's not too far in the future. Also, the top end of the plantation drain that we did in conjunction with Napier City Council 2 or 3 years ago, they are keen on progressing that program as well. So while the lower typo has some benefits, obviously, we need to be considering the whole of the area and where priority should lie, is my view.
Councillor Scott.
Does the lower typo carry stormwater?
Yes, it does.
And is the stormwater a part of the tank process under consideration now?
I can't answer that, but I'm guessing
Yes,
it is.
it will be.
Yeah,
Yep. Yes.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. But, stormwater is already in the typo by the time it gets to the lower typo. So if you're looking at mitigating the impact of stormwater as it flows into typo, it's not the right place to be.
The only thing is that there is a bit of partnering going on, isn't there, with Napier City Council and his organisation, what do you call it again? HOHAPA. And, it pays to be part of partnerships because you leverage your own dollars. But what is dealt with here are very largely operational matters. And I don't know that we need to particularly decide on his submission today. Well, yeah, okay, no change to the plan, but that doesn't mean to say that some of the matters that he's raised here can't be possibly progressed by Mr Adey and his staff.
A seconder for that? Wish to speak, Councillor Scott?
Mr Chairman, and I did consider because it is, what he's requested not as funding change, but a wording change to the plan, and he's been quite specific about what he was requesting with that. Sorry, I didn't have my microphone on. Mr Adey has indicated that the operational plans do actually cover this, so I do hope that his attention is in the letter drawn to those operational plans. Not all detail is covered in the annual plan, and so those targets actually, there are targets in the operational plan, and that has been decided by this council. The work on the typo stream, I've got to say that there is, TANK is working on this. That is one of the small groups that is now currently meeting. It was going to meet today and didn't because of sickness of the lead staff. But that work needs to be able to run its course too before we actually start developing any environmental plans for there, because the work that TANK agrees to with the stormwater will have to feed into that.
Thank you. Seconder, other speakers? put the motion, then all those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Thank you.